Hey everybody, this is Warren Marshall, and this is not going to be your traditional kind of tutorial video. I thought, I came across this problem the other day, or came up against this problem the other day, and thought this might be an interesting topic to discuss. So basically, what I needed, I guess, in a nutshell, is human bodies shrink wrapped in plastic bags. You gotta love game art, right? So anyway. My problem is that I'm not a character artist. I don't do character art. So I had to get creative as a hard surface prop artist to figure out how am I going to get this to actually work. And you'll come across these situations quite a bit as a game artist. You have to get creative and you have to come up with solutions for stuff. So my particular solution was that I remembered that the UE4 mannequin, who I use in MODO for scale and stuff like that, comes in these separate chunks and separate pieces. And so with that in mind, I thought to myself, well, I could probably pose that mannequin and then use that, say, in Marvelous Designer to stretch cloth across it to simulate plastic, and then use ZBrush along the way to make it to make it all, what am I trying to say? Make it all come into the finish line, get it all polished up and completed. And so that's what I ended up doing. So that's really what this video is just giving you a look at the various steps that I went through to make this happen. The UE4 mannequin comes with a number of interesting or useful features. The main one being, you can see here that the joints generally have these spheres stuck inside the mesh. I guess they're used as rotational pivots or whatever, but I was able to get a head start on filling in the negative space by grabbing those, scaling them up, and trying to get a less robotic look to the base mesh before sending it over to ZBrush. Yeah, and this prop is probably familiar to you if you've been following me on Instagram, because I've been posting progress shots of it and that kind of thing. And it's got these placeholder bags right now, with the UE4 mannequin inside of it. Actually, I tend to use that mannequin for a lot of things. So here I am using the silhouette mode just to check out the shapes and that kind of thing. And yeah, it looks humanoid. I didn't really spend a lot of time on the pose, even though it kind of looks like I did. um, I got the head kind of lolling to the side, and I got the legs sort of hanging relaxed, and the feet pointing down, and the hands kind of resting at the sides, and that kind of thing. Just trying to get sort of a neutral, blank slate kind of look to it. That kind of a pose to convey that it's not a live person who's struggling inside the bag. It's just a body, basically. So anyway, off to ZBrush. In hindsight, well, no, I guess this was necessary. I probably spent too much time in here, to be honest, but this was sort of an experiment to see how can I make this work and what's going to look good. And since I didn't know, I kind of had to take some risks here. So I brought it in. I've hit it with the Dynamesh, and I'm starting off with the Form Soft brush, but that doesn't last. I think I eventually end up using the clay buildup brush and smoothing it out, and that's really all it ends up being. Luckily for me, it doesn't have to be a perfect humanoid. It just has to resemble that humanoid shape and not be an android, basically. So I'm just trying to smooth out the joints, smooth out the obvious mechanical lips, and fill in the negative spaces just enough so that when I pull it into Marvelous Designer, you'll get the impression that there's a human behind the sheet, that kind of thing. That's really all I'm trying to do here. You probably noticed that Dynamesh really kind of tore up the hands pretty bad. And so I spent a little time trying to clean that up, but then I just decided that as long as there weren't like any obvious jaggy parts sticking up, that would be good enough, because that wouldn't snag the fabric in Marvelous Designer, and it would still work out okay. Even though the parts close to the body look like garbage, it doesn't matter because you're not going to see them and they won't show through. It's really just about doing just enough to sell the idea, basically. The reality is that I ended up doing a lot of work in here that really didn't pay off in the end. Well, you'll see near the end of the video, the shape that pokes through the plastic is not necessarily all that distinct, and I think I was anticipating it being a lot more, or a lot crisper. And I suppose if I spent more time in Marvelous Designer, I probably could have gotten that to happen. But that's the thing with game art, right? It's always a question of time versus bang for the buck sort of thing. Like, spending more time on this, yes, may make it look better, but will it matter in the end? It's like having to know when to stop adding detail to your high poly mesh. There comes a point when it's just not going to matter anymore. And this is similar. So we're done in ZBrush, and I pulled it back into MODO just to do a quick sanity check on it and make sure that it was still holding up the shape correctly. And I'm liking that. That looks good to me. That frame you see appearing around the outside, that's the outside dimensions of the plastic bag that I want to put the body inside of. So that's there for scale purposes, and it's also there for utility purposes. So I can tack the sheet inside, or tack the fabric, I should say, in Marvelous to it. Now you'll see in here, there's quite a bit of me tacking the sheet to the avatar, and running simulations and trying it this way, trying it that way. So there's a bit of iteration here. If you find that boring, you can always jump ahead. But this is, again, I really didn't know where this was headed. That was just a rough test to make sure that I had the sewing correct. And I think I end up just deleting the back again here anyway. But yeah, I mean, this is part of the iteration. You sort of have an idea of how an app might be able to help you, and so you just start experimenting. Yeah, I believe in the end what I do is I delete the back, I tack the front to the frame, and then I use sewing to attach the back to the front or something like that. Well, in fact, I think exactly like that. But we don't get to that for a couple minutes anyway. Yeah, so you can just, so what I found in the past is when I've worked on cloth, if you want to get those tight, those tension lines, you need to make the fabric small enough that it gets pulled between the anchor points. Because if you just let it hang, then you won't get tension marks. But if you make the fabric smaller than it needs to be and you pull the edges out to whatever kind of reference frame you have, you will get those stretch marks going on. And we'll get to that here in a minute or two. Yeah, see, now we're starting to get there. Now we've got the, it kind of looks like something from Doom or Quake, like skin stretched across some sort of lattice work or whatever. But anyway, adjusting all of these. This is one thing that I wish Marvelous would sort of do better. If you resize the fabric, it doesn't move your tack points with it, which is kind of irritating. But you can just select them all and just pull them in. Now I give it a different color so that it will, the specular will show through a little better. You'll see we'll make it a dark color here, I think. Yeah, there we go. Now you can start to see the pulled, stretched fabric going across the form and giving you the, the implication that there's a body back there, but not being so obvious that you can tell that it's not fully modeled out or that kind of thing. It's giving you just enough information that you can tell there's a body, but no real details. Standard Marvelous Designer stuff there. Run the simulation and tug at the cloth to give it, some help. So I decided that I needed the, I wanted to go for even more tension. So what I ended up doing was editing my tacks and just sliding them out toward the outer edge of the railing. And I think I figure out here in a second that if I stop simulating, the points are easier to select. Now, this is not a program that I use all the time, so sometimes I'm a little slow on how to get the best results out of it. There we go. Oh yeah, now I can select everything. All right, so this has got the back on it, and the back is smaller than the front, and it's sewn to the front. So when I run that simulation, it all snaps together, and we get a front and a back, which is exactly what I was looking for. Looks pretty creepy right about now. And, well, to be honest, it looks creepy in the end, too. Okay, so back into ZBrush. Now, the reason I wanted to come into ZBrush for this and not MODO was because I wanted to not only scooch these edges out to fill up the frame, which I could have done in MODO, but I also wanted to clip it to the frame and to add some additional folds and creases and those sorts of things. Which you'll see me do here in a little bit once all this gets done. And ZBrush is also not necessarily my strongest suit, but I know enough to get things done. But I sometimes don't choose the smartest route, Like my initial thought was, well, I'll take the frame and scale it out. It was just not going to work, obviously. And then use live Booleans to clip it all off, and then. Yeah, that's my mop Boolean thinking from MODO coming in. So So I spent some brain cycles thinking about making up different poly groups and doing this and that and the other thing to give me better dragging. And then I thought, oh wait, or I could probably just use the built-in trim tool and just knock off the bits I don't want. So yeah, sometimes the obvious solution is staring you in the face. So now that the major forms are in place, I re-dynamesh it to fix the topology. And then we need to pinch down these sides that may have fattened up on us, because that needs to like snap into the outer frame and and be suspended. So it can't be all thick like that. So I spend a minute or two here pinching that down. And then I think after this we get into doing the additional folds by dragging some alpha masks onto it. Also by using the, I think one of the orb brushes, and you're drawing some additional creases on there and pinching them to tighten them up and that kind of thing. So that about wraps up the process for how I came up with this, or how I solved this particular issue. The rest of the video, I think, is just me tweaking the different folds and creases and that sort of thing. But yeah, I hope you found this interesting. I wasn't sure about this video. Like, I thought about it and I was like, well, it's not really a tutorial, but it's not really like a warm-up. It's sort of like, hey, here's me at work doing things and trying to solve problems. And I was thinking in the back of my head, this would be interesting to to other artists. So if this was interesting to you, hit the like button. That way I'll know you want more of these in the future. And if you didn't, if you don't like it or you don't think it's useful, then go ahead and hit the dislike. That's fine. It's important to me to know what's worthwhile to record for you guys and what isn't. But anyway, yeah. I think the rest of this video is just me finishing up the folds, like I said. So so subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And hopefully I'll get some feedback from you guys, and we might see more of these videos in the future. Thanks for watching. Just wanted to point out, here's the pinching phase. So what I did was initially when I laid in those alphas, I was doing it with a morph target turned on. So I used the morph brush to take out some of the folds, so it didn't look like just straight cloth. And then I used the pinch tool to come through here and tighten up a bunch of the ridges, so that they look like plastic, and again, not like cloth. And I think I whiffed it there. So I'm doing it over again because I didn't like how it turned out. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that. You can sometimes use a morph target and go crazy with something, and then use the morph brush to dial it back to where you find the effect to be more suitable for what you're doing. The same can be done with layers. I have a layer on here as well, and I've used layers throughout this piece. You didn't see all of it, but sometimes you can just lay a bunch of stuff into a layer and then turn the intensity of the layer down so it has not the full, the full effect isn't happening, but you get just the adjusted bit or the subtlety that you're after. So yeah, hey, game art, Right, and this bit here at the end was just me laying in a few additional little stretch marks in the plastic here and there where I thought it might look okay. It was, I didn't love that, but I think in the end, Yeah, I ended up making some longer ones that stayed. So anyway, I really am going to go now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.